All right, Tim, we go out all winter and freeze half the time and everything. We have a lot of fun. And you're writing things down and everything. And the draft is on. It was yesterday. It was Saturday.
Yep, it was the OHL priority draft was yesterday. And Ty Nelson from the Junior Canadians went first overall.
He's good. I remember him.
He's good. Yep. He's. I would consider him a cross between Victor Mete and maybe
Is
Ryan.
he a good skater as Mete? Nah, nobody is.
No, well, pretty close though. He's one of those offensive guys. He's a little bit smaller defenseman and stuff, but he put up a lot of points, and he's quite deserving to go first overall.
Yeah, he was good. But I have to tell you a story. Why don't you tell a story about the kid I like, number 11?
Well, it was one of those. If you remember, we talked about the London Knights and how they're, everybody considers them the evil empire.
Well, Mark Hunter. Well, that's that. The only general manager we saw out there, maybe they were there, I don't know, was Mark Hunter, and it was cold that day. It was cold. Remember how cold it was?
Yeah, and with Mark, even when Mark was doing, he was the GM for the World Juniors.
Yeah,
we still saw him out on a Tuesday night and at Westwood Arena.
And was it cold?
Looking at guys. And it was funny because you and I were at a game at the Paramount Center, which used to be the Hershey Center. We were watching a game, and it was North York Rangers and the Mississauga Senators, and they were two teams that weren't overly strong. Yeah. They were kind of middle of the pack. And a kid named Nicholas Yearwood went in the corner and really corked a defenseman, took the puck off him, walked out front, and fed his teammate, and they scored a nice goal. And you said, that guy, he should play for Dale, right? And just the way, and he did. He was just one of those guys that consistently hit, and as you said, had the right attitude.
Yeah, he had the right attitude. He could have played for the Bruins. And I know we shouldn't be talking about. And where did you say he went?
And he went. He got drafted by the London Knights, going with Mark and Dale Hunter, 299th. He was the second to last pick, which boggles my mind a little bit. But
yeah, well, that just tells me something. That when I won't go into when we were Mississauga Ice Dogs. If you and I had been doing what we do, we won't go into that. But I must phone Dale. I will phone Dale, and I did mention that. Tim, I did mention that, and I don't know where we were, but their scouts had on toques. I didn't realize them. I said, 2 of your scouts were here watching, and they did mention him.
Ken, yep, their head scout Ken, he was out, and. When we talked about him probably about halfway through the year, and then you went and saw him a couple of times, and he's one of those, and people always 299.
Well, anybody knows the first and second. I mean, that Fernelli kid. I mean, how do you pronounce his name?
Adam Fintelli.
I mean, that is the crime. Him going down and playing. What is he playing?
He's playing the USHL. He would be. He would have no. Disparaged to Ty, but he would have been the first overall pick.
He was fantastic.
He's 6'1", 180, and
the right attitude.
And he's one of those guys that's a power forward, but he can also score. He could have played in the OHL last year.
Yeah, he could have. He was only how old was he?
14. He could have played.
And he was really good. He went down, and so why did he go down and play prep hockey down there? What did he play? 30 games or something?
Yeah, I don't know what he did.
Brother
I
down there?
I think his brother went down there, and he wanted to play.
What a waste.
I watch prep hockey, and it's okay, but he's not
it's
learning.
Like practice.
It's like practice. He's not learning. He's not pushing himself by any means.
No, push yourself. I mean, you'd have to wake up and something. Boom, it's just boom ba, it's just boom ba. I mean, it's just. I mean, for him, not everybody wants to play the GTHL. And here's a kid has a chance to play. He goes down and plays prep hockey.
Then he goes to USHL. So, but they said he's, and the reason we're going to talk about him is because you're going to hear about him in about 2 years.
Yeah, you'll be telling me about him. Hey, that's a good hockey player. Yeah. Like Marner. That Marner, is he really? Yeah. We were watching him when he was, 13 or 14?
14, 15, we were watching him. And same with Shane Wright, but Finelli, they'll be talking about him in, about 2 or 3.
Shane Wright, I mean, I guess he had a year in Kingston. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, broke the record for the Frontenac's record for goals for a rookie, and was closing in on Travers's record for exceptional players.
And you're asking me who he played. It's like he always reminded me of Crosby.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think he's quite the finished of Crosby, but he always had the legs wide apart, and he goes for the net now.
Yeah, he scores let it go. But just getting back to Adam Fantilli, he said, reading stuff on the internet, reading some stuff on the article, that he wants to go there, play one more year with his brother in the USHL, and then his brother's going to go to college, and then he was talking that maybe that he'd come back and play in the OHL, because he's one of those guys in 3 years will make the National Hockey League.
Oh yeah, he'll be in the National Hockey League. But it just wasted years as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, you wonder. But and the other thing that Cindy, you know how it is being the mother of a goalie, but drafting goalies is always strange. I always find it strange in this draft. And we watched the kid in Vaughan this year.
He was pretty good.
I mean, he was the
reason they were there.
Right, and if you'd go in the GTHL, if you go the playoff MVP, he would have been it for sure.
Well, you go to the National Hockey League. I mean, Binghamton and I've always said O'Reilly should have been the MVP, but it should have been Cole. I mean, there was two of them there, and they won the Stanley Cup. I mean, if he doesn't come up that seventh game, he's unbelievable. And you're right about goalies, but where'd the kid go?
I think he went sixth round, and you just like goalies, like what we even talk about this when you're drafting. You don't know what's the best thing for a goalie on a team in minor hockey, because if he plays on a really strong team, the scouts and people tend to say, "Well, he didn't see a lot of shots. He's on a good team. How good is he?" And there's a doubt against him. But then if he plays on an okay team and sees a lot of shots but gets scored on a lot, then they say, "Well, he scored a lot."
Yeah.
He scored on a lot. So it really is kind of a fine line of where a goalie should play. And you and I were talking about that the goalies are tough because they almost get a lost year.
Yeah, tell us about that. A lot of people don't realize, and I tell you the truth, I didn't realize it either. But tell us those 2 years in between. But go ahead.
Yeah, So what happens is you draft the goalies in the OHL are 15. They're 16 years old. They'll be 16. Very few times do the kids at 16 make it in the OHL. They don't. They usually don't do that. Usually have an older.
They sit on the bench. Yeah.
Yeah, but they don't even make the team because they have the older goalie, and then you have the guy that they've been grooming to take over a spot. So a lot of the goalies, sometimes they go back to midget. And midget hockey is
not the way it used
to be, and you don't get a lot of stuff.
Remember when I was in the midget hockey at one time, I used to go, and they all used to come on the ice to St. Mike's all the time, and they'd have their flags, and they'd all be proud as punch and everything like that. And I used to go all the time and say something, and then they changed. Why did they change?
Well, then what happened was, like, a lot of the kids stopped going. Well, a lot of the kids then started going to provincial junior A. And so midget hockey isn't as strong as it used to be. And then, so if the kids are playing there, they're not playing against really high caliber.
Yeah.
And then if they go into provincial junior A, they tend to sit on the bench too. Now
the goalies.
The goalies. So sometimes there's some leagues that say, okay, they got to play X amount of games. But, those coaches want to win, and they go with the older goalies. So it's almost like 2 years that the goalies...
And now they're in junior hockey, they're letting the foreigners back in.
Yeah, they're letting the European goalies back in. And, we started doing well with the goalies, and I don't know why they come back in.
Oh, well, you know how Canada is, and Canadians and the whole deal. Come on in and take our jobs and the whole deal and everything like that. We were putting out pretty good goalies over time there.
Yeah, and then they brought the European goalies that back. But but what it did was when they didn't have the European goalies, it forced junior hockey to promote those kids faster. So they would be on they'd be on a junior a CHL team. And they'd get actually, better goaltending coaching, and they get better practices, and they'd be on the ice every day. And so we'll see what happens. But it's always fun to watch. Not fun, but it's interesting to see what goalies are going to go where. And
Yeah, and that kid with Vaughn, and we're talking GTHL. I'm sure out west it's the same, and Nova Scotia, you're running the same things.
Yeah. So the year's over. It's been a strange year in hockey, but it was a fun year in the GTHL. They got all the games in, and the OHL Cup was canceled, so we didn't find out who the best.
They just happened. Everything got over with, and I think the one series I was supposed to drop the puck. Where was that, Gary? Remember
that was going to be at the midget tournament that they were having at the end of the year. So another year. I just want to, and the one thing too that we always talk about is that a lot of kids are probably disappointed. That they didn't get drafted, and even some of the kids that I called the kids on the phone, and the kids that are drafted in the later rounds, you could see they're a little.
They're disappointed. Cindy, you remember that time in Barrie that you came to me, and I was general manager and coach, and remember that story? I forget about that.
Oh, yes, I remember that. That was, as you're saying, they're doing it all online now. And in the old days, they used to have all the teams on the ice.
I didn't like that, Cindy.
Yes. Well, you always used to say on Coach's Corner that unless you're guaranteed first or second round, do not come to the drafts. You used to say that all the time. But sure enough, it would be filled.
One guy hired a bus, and he had all his friends come, and he didn't get drafted. But tell us about.
Well, what happened was, I'll just make it quick. We were in the box, and you were there, and all the players that were drafted would come up and see you, and they take the pictures.
Yeah.
So in the beginning of the draft, it was early in the morning. There was a kid, good-looking kid, brand new suit. You can tell he got a fresh haircut. Had his sister and his mom there, and they were all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, excited that they were going to be drafted.
It's 8:00 in the morning.
8:00 in the morning, and it's now 10:00. It's now noon. He's not drafted. His posture changes. His head's down. His sister is even rubbing his back because he's close to, in tears. He's embarrassed. I just saw this kid wilt before my eyes, and my heart just went to him. So he was really close to the box, so I tapped on to his mother, and I said, "What's your kid's name?" And he was French.
George Sevic, I believe is his name.
Is that it?
Yeah.
So, and I said, "Oh, okay." So I went to you, Dad, and it's funny, Dad, you always know when I want something, because I always say, "Dad," and you always look and say, "I don't know what you want, Cindy, but it doesn't sound good for me." You always there was a way I would say Dad that you would know. And I said, because we were like at the 17th round. Was there 20 rounds?
No, they called it.
We bowed out.
You bowed out at the 17th. There was no more. I said, "I want you to draft this kid named whatever." And he goes, "What?" He goes, "We're out of it." And I said, because you had a direct line.
I went to David Branch,
No, you had there was a phone that you could call down, and Uncle Rich and his table were down on the ice.
Yeah.
So you pick up and said, announce the kid, whatever his name was, and so.
I remember Richard saying,
What?
We're out of it.
Nah, just do it. Just do it. Just name this kid.
I think David Branch did us a favor, yeah.
So the Mississauga Ice Dogs reopened their draft. It was announced, and they are going to have what's the kid's name?
George, I believe it's SVEC, I think.
And so you announced his name. All the other scouts know, who's this? What's this? What's this going on? And they announce his name, and he jumps up, and his mom is hugging him, and his sister, and they were so excited, and my heart just beamed. And he jumped over, and he came into our box, and he had his picture taken with you, and it made his day.
Do you know that some teams complained?
No.
Yeah.
Really?
There were some teams that went to Branch and complained, saying that the Ice Dogs bowed out and then went in again and complained to pick 332 or something like that.
I know. I remember.
Anything I did back in those days.
But you know what I remember about that kid too? I remember. So he went to train. He was a big goalie.
He was a big goalie, and you said he has big mitts. He has big hands. That's a good sign, Cindy.
So we were going, but he wasn't going to do. So
he was all right.
So we said, We wasn't going to make the club. We knew he wasn't going to make the club. But you said, you know what? We're going up to Sarnia to play an exhibition game. We'll start him. Let him say he played.
I
I think I
remember
went
this.
to that game just to, I said, I want to see my little French goalie start or whatever.
Sure.
I want to see my goalie start.
So we go to the game, and you're sitting in the box, and this was before Sarnia. I think it was before the Dino brothers, the Sorellis, Dino Sorelli and his brother bought it. So you were sitting in the box with the owner.
With
And
Dino?
No, it wasn't Dino. It was the owner before. And they had his kid was there, and his kid was like about 16 or 17. He was kind of a punk though, right? And so we're playing the game, and the kid let in a couple of goals, but he made some saves. And as Trevor says, he always could say he played one exhibition. So you're sitting there, but you're a little mad because we were getting beat, and a fight broke out, and it was like, it was kind of it was an okay fight, and they went to the penalty box, and this owner's kid says, that wasn't much of a fight. And you turn around and you say, yeah? How many fights have you been in? And the kid goes, what? Well, you say it's not a good fight. How many fights have you been in? That kid, he goes, our guy, he fought a guy that was 3 inches taller than him. I go, how many times have you been in a fight? Okay, well, I've never been in a fight. Well, if you've never been in a fight, shut the up.
I don't remember that.
I did. And the owner just killed himself laughing. He must have thought, probably never talked to his kid like that before. You put the kid in the place, but I thought that was. I remember that.
How about the time we went down when Dino was there? Remember Dino? Dino scored 4,000 goals.
Oh, right.
And remember, tell that story. That was a good.
Yeah, so we went. It was so Dino had bought Dino and his brother
Dino
bought
Cicerelli.
Dino
Hall
Cicerelli.
of Famer.
Yeah, I mean, he bought and his brother, I guess, bought Sarnia, and so we were going to make a trade with Sarnia. So we go down and sit in the press box, and they're playing London, and so Sarnia and London is like, and
they hate
it's
one another.
It's the Hunters versus the Sorellis. Like
Yeah.
there was
Not good feeling.
No, they had to have the police there because you knew something was going to happen. So they're in Sarnia. It's a sellout. The crowd's going nuts. And it's 1-0 London, 2-0 London, 3-0 London. So Dino, he's just
steaming.
So Dino goes. So Mark Hunter comes over and just says hello, hi Don, how are you doing? And just kind of go, and like he was just kind of being, and he kind of said, what are you doing here? Like who are you looking at? And we said, oh no, we're just looking. We're kind of, we didn't say anything. So he goes, okay, well, see, he goes, he laughed. He said, if you're ever going to make a deal, he said, let me know before you make a deal with Dino, right? So he leaves.
And Dino's sitting there.
So Dino was in his box. So Dino comes over. What are you talking to Mark for? What are you talking to Mark for? You got a deal with Mark? We go, no. Well, what deal do you got with Mark? He goes, because if you got a deal with Mark, I'll do better. I'll do better.
He went into a tirade.
So we go. He goes, I don't want you sitting down here. Mark can talk to you. Come into my box. So we have to go into his box because he doesn't want Mark Hunter talking to us. So we go into his box. So it's 4-0. And they scored 2 more, so it's like 5-0. Now the fans are booing. They're throwing stuff. And the ref at the time did what he was supposed to do. He gives London a penalty to keep, because the game is about to explode, right? So he gives London a penalty. And their power plays on the outside and don't get any shots. And so you can see Dino, he's chewing his fingernails. So the referee does his, because it gives London another penalty. Again, trying to keep the game in control. No shots on net. Does it a third time. So 3 penalties in a row for London. No shots on net for Sarnia. So Dino's sitting there. He goes, Grapes, he said...
how many goals did I score in the National Hockey
He goes, what did I get? How many goals? 500 goals in the National Hockey League? He says...
I used to stand in front.
He goes, he says, I played pretty good. He goes, I think I did pretty good, standing in front. And he says, do you think I could go down and tell the guy what to do? But oh no, he goes, I'm Dino Cicerelli. If I go down, I'm the meddling owner. I'm the meddling owner. So we got some guy teaching these kids not to stand in front of the net. I can stand in front of the net, and I can get the...
How tall am I?
How tall
am I?
He goes, so now you're starting to bug him. Look, Dino, they're not standing in front of the net. Look at that. That goalie could have stopped that shot 1,000 times.
Picking cherries.
Picking cherries. And he just, And he gets getting madder and
Yeah,
madder.
I let up. I had to stop.
He kind of stopped because it looks like his head was about to pop.
What he reminded me when I coached the.
So he's just said, he goes, I got to leave, Grapes. He says, I got to go. And he says, remember, he says, if you're going to make a trade with Hunter, he says, I'll do better. And they laughed.
Boy, they hated one another, and I don't know. Dino's not involved now.
No, they sold the club.
Yeah, he was either that or he'd have a heart attack. But
Hey, you know, the funny thing is, though, like, and you mentioned it, you said to him, I remember what you said to him then. You said, in much more hockey terms, why don't you step up to the plate and go down and coach?
Yeah, I did.
You did.
Yeah, I know. I remember.
You said she says, why are you sitting up here who's had 13, 14 years in the National Hockey, 500 goals, and you're watching your team do this? He said, first of all, Dino, you're going to have a heart attack.
Yeah.
And he said, second of all, you know more than those guys behind the bench. What are you doing? And he thought about it, and then he kind of grumbled, and he says, yeah, he goes, maybe I should. He says, because I'm going to die up here.
Yeah, I know how he felt. Tim, I know how he felt. I was general manager of and well, you know, I had to get out of it. Or I mean, playing is the best, coaching second best, but general manager, how they ever stand it? I couldn't stand it. I'm glad they sold. I wouldn't be alive today, I don't think, if we hadn't sold a club. We had to sell a club one, but it is awful, and I know how Dino felt.
I bet you he would have been a good coach. I bet you
Dino would have been a great coach, because you would have listened to him, because he scored all those goals. I remember when he never got drafted either. I think he broke his leg.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing, you know, that I told some of the kids. I said, you know, like, I think that the newest one is Anthony Cirelli for Tampa. Remember, he didn't get drafted.
A lot of guys.
And then DJ Smith, who's coaching Ottawa Senators now, he was coaching the Oshawa Generals, invited him to camp. He made the team.
Yeah.
Scored the Memorial Cup winning goal in overtime, and then gets drafted by Tampa and is on Tampa's second line. So
a lot of kids, you know, like that kid that drafted 300th or 900th or something like that. A lot of kids have walk-on. I mean, it is a hard time to get. If you're a walk-on, you have no scout pushing you, and you have to make it. So there's a lot of kids that drafted that are playing the National Hockey League that weren't drafted.
yeah, I think it's easier in junior, as you said, because a lot of the coaches are the GMs and you know, whoever's going to help them win. But you say that it's a lot harder for an NHL guy.
Kid goes there, he's not drafted. He doesn't have a scout pushing him. He doesn't have a GM pushing him, and he really has to dig down to get on the team. And you know, if he makes the team, he's got to be a pretty good kid.
I can add one more thing to my story that I never told you.
Yeah. Oh, good. Glad to hear it.
I love telling you these things that you don't know about. After that kid came up and everything, there was another mother that saw this whole thing transpire. So I'm standing there in the box, and she comes up to me, because you could talk over the box. She was in the bowl. She goes, I saw what you did. I go, yeah. And she says, I just want you to know, she says, we've been here since 8 o'clock, and we drove all the way from Detroit. She says, can you, because we still got 2 more rounds to go. She goes, can you do the same for my son? Like, can you imagine? Like, I said, you know, ma'am, I said, I don't think I have enough nerve to go up to my dad again. And I said, where are you from? She's Detroit. And I lied, and I said, I don't think we're allowed to draft from the States. She believed me. But that was really heartbreaking.
I would have done what we had nothing to lose.
I just like I came to you. You don't go to the well too often with you, so.
Well, you know, it's a funny thing. Now that we're on Mississauga, that
well, that could be a whole show.
Well, we could go on, but you know, you get your brains pounded out for the first couple of years to get the first round draft choices, and we did get our brains pounded out the first couple of years, and we got it I got it in the paper. I, like a fool.
You took all the slings and arrows for everyone else that screwed up.
Yeah,
let's face it.
And did I ever take him? Boy, I'll tell you, that was the toughest time. But we won with the players we drafted, and we traded the players back and forth. The Mississauga Ice Dogs won what was it, Tim? The
Eastern Championship.
Yeah, Eastern Championship in 6 years, and we at one year we had more guys drafted to the National Hockey League than anybody in junior hockey. The second was London, and nobody ever mentions that with the players we won. And boy, I tell you though, that first couple of years, talk about. The papers had a field day, and I was the guy that kicked around, and I had to get out of it. I wasn't quitting. But what happened was how we got out of the Mississauga. The majority owner wanted to sell, and we had a deal. If one sells, we all sell. Thank goodness.
So, Dad, we're going to talk about Patty Verbeek, but before we get to Pat, we got to talk about something that we talked about last week. First of all, we talked about the Leafs when they went on that run in the '93 when they lost to LA in 7 games.
Well, it only stands to reason if the two linesmen, Ronnie Finn and Kevin Sutherland, I think it was Kevin. Kevin. Anyhow, if they and I guess it's easy on television. You see him being cut. Who do you think cut him? Anyhow, Gretzky wouldn't have been on the ice to score the winning goal.
Right. So let's say Toronto wins, and now it's a Toronto-Montreal 1993 finals. You guys would probably have like 90% of Canada watching. Who would have won the series?
You're asking me?
Yeah.
That's a tough one because Patrick Waugh, he was dedicated. I think
his record in the playoffs was 16-4, 2.1 goals against average and a 929 save percentage, and they won 10 straight overtime games.
I would say Toronto would have won on, even though Kirk Muller was the captain.
Yeah, that would have been tough between Kirk Muller and Dougie Gilmour. Who do you root for?
I still say Toronto win. You know why? Because that was the best hockey player. I don't care what anybody says, with Dougie Gilmour. He was fantastic. Wendell tells the story. I love the story that Wendell tells, Wendell Clark. He tells the story. We'd be in the trainer's room having a beer and a pizza, and Dougie he'd be laying on the trainer's stand getting intravenous and he looked like death warmed over. So I say Toronto would have won.
Because Dougie Gilmour had, in 21 games, he had 36 points. Gretzky only had more. He only had 5 more points in 4 more games. So Dougie had 21 points in 36 points in 21 games, and then Wendell had.
Remember his
he had 20 points.
His shot was unbelievable. Remember, he'd tear the back of the net out with that. So I say, I'm not saying it because it's Toronto, but I would say Toronto would have won because they were smoking. They were smoking, and if at that 5-minute major had been called, they would have won. And they didn't have the right attitude on that game in LA. I watched them in the morning skate. And they were fooling around, And I said to Ron McLean, I said they're not winning. Their attitude has changed, and but I still say if they had got by, they would have Stanley Cup playoffs. Come on, I mean the finals.
Imagine the ratings.
Holy smokes!
Yeah.
And
but we have to get to Pat Verbeek because
let's get to Pat Verbeek.
We've been saying this now, I think, for a month.
Okay, I've written down a lot of stuff about Pat Verbeek. He was always one of my favorites. I don't understand it.
So here's a guy we're saying that another guy that should be in the Hall of Fame.
Well, yeah, another guy. Let's just go over what he did. I mean, and during the season he had 520 goals. 520 goals. I think he had 5 with the playoffs. He ended up with 550 goals. Now I'm not knocking the guys in the national, in the Hall of Fame and everything, but we had him on, and they call him the little ball of hate. He had 3,000 minutes, and he was a tough little guy. I mean, he wasn't too big, but he'd stand in front of that net and take abuse. He was a tough little guy. 3,000 minutes and penalties, a little ball of hate.
Yeah, and he was kind of like Dale Hunter before Dale Hunter.
Well, yeah. Now that I think of it, he could score better than Dale.
And they were both from Petrolia.
Yeah, and went from Sarnia.
Must be the water.
Yeah, it must be the water down there. He had 4 40-goal scorers. He had 4 30 years. He was Stanley Cup winner.
Yeah.
He was Stanley Cup winner. He was a terror. I mean, he really was. I mean, they call him a little ball of hate with 3,000 minutes, and to think that he is. It's hard to believe that a guy with 550 goals, and he had over 1,000 points a game, and he's not in the Hall of Fame.
And a Stanley Cup.
And
Because that's what they say. Well, he never won a Stanley Cup to keep him out. And he ends up winning the Stanley Cup.
He won the Stanley Cup. He had 3,000 minutes. And you know what? Maybe like Dale. Dale told me, I said, Dale, how come you're not in this? And he said, I'm not their kind. Maybe he wasn't their kind. Maybe he was too mean and nasty and a little ball of hate. How could you put a little ball of hate in the Hall of Fame, I guess?
Well, we have to tell the story how he got mad at you when we had him on the Grapevine show. Though, unfortunately, I got to find I couldn't find the clip. Maybe one day I'll find it. But we got to tell the story about his thumb and then how he got mad at you.
Let me tell that story. Because in Wolf Island, it happened the same thing. He was out with his brother, eh? And he reached in.
They were farming.
Farming, yeah.
And they were spreading manure. They had a manure spreader.
And he reached in for some reason, cleared out, and cut his thumb right off. Cut his thumb right off. So his brother and him, they got all excited, and they went to the hospital, and they realized they didn't have his thumb. And the doctor said, we could, throw your thumb. So he had to phone his father. His father had to go and look in the fertilizer to find his thumb. This is a true story. And drove his thumb to the hospital and sewed his thumb back on. And that year, I think he got
30 or 40 goals.
40 going. So I thought it'd be a joke to say. And I'm talking, and I said, well, your reason that you scored so many goals that when your thumb got cut off, that the cement went out of your hands. And I thought it was a funny joke. Boy,
he gave you a dirty look.
Did he? Yeah, like he was ticked off. Like, I thought it was a funny joke, and I said, the only trouble you have, you couldn't hitchhike. And he got mad again. I mean, he was getting mad the whole thing. I thought he was going to come over and punch me, but he was a great little guy. Yeah. And to think him not in the Hall of Fame.
Well, there's a list of some of the power play goals, like how many power plays. Like I think he has more power play goals than Bossy and Anderson and Messier. It just goes on and on.
And he used to stand in front and take it. And in those days, if you stood in front, here's the way the referees thought. You want to stand in front? Take the abuse. And they used to have big guys. Him and Dino, they were both the same size. They would just get their Dino Cicerelli. They would get the heck kicked out of them. And the referee said, you want to stand in front? Take the abuse. And I just think, I thought the world of Pat Verbeek. And even though he did get mad at me on the Grapevine.